Howdy, Ags. Welcome to Aggie Growth Hacks, the podcast sponsored by the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship at Texas A&M, where we are dedicated to helping entrepreneurs improve their business, connect with other Aggie entrepreneurs, and support one another. I'm your host, Greg Martin, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2001.
And I'm your co-host, Chris Hunter, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 1998.
Well, we got a little story for you, Ags. Jason Kaspar, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2005, is the CEO of Kaspar Companies, a family-owned business that has existed for over 125 years. Kaspar Companies is like a Shiner-based Berkshire Hathaway in that they're a holding company for other companies. And this year, 3 of those companies, Texas Precious Metals, Bedrock Truck Beds, and Horizon Firearms, who we met way back in Season 1, Episode 2, all 3 companies made the Aggie 100 list of fastest Aggie-owned and operated companies. This is like a masterclass listening to Jason as we geeked out about processes and the need for the relentless pursuit of customer value.
So pass it back and listen up to Jason as he shares some good bull.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us today on Aggie Growth Hacks. Congratulations on you and your team's multiple Aggie 100 wins. But this is for Ags, for those who haven't put the connection together. If you go way back into the spring of 2020, COVID happened, but also Aggie Growth Hacks dropped. And our number 2 episode was Horizon Firearms, which is part of Kaspar Companies. Jason, you are the CEO of Kaspar Companies, so thank you for kind of leading that and sharing your entrepreneurial journey with us today.
For sure. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, this is super exciting. We love doing interviews all the time, but especially on Aggie 100 Day, where we get to celebrate with you and your team on the great successes you've had. How about you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about Kaspar Companies and your entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. So I'm originally from Shiner, Texas. It's a one-stop light town, 2,000 people. Went to A&M. My goal was to get to New York.
You didn't even mention, I would mention the brewery. Obviously you know that.
Yeah. That's what Shiner's best known for. You can be anywhere in the United States and you say you're from Shiner's, like, I've been there, again, this one stoplight town.
Yeah. It's probably like people in Brenham's like, oh yeah, they make blueberry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I guess my first entrepreneurial endeavor, if I'm going to start young, was chicken eggs. So I was 7, 8, 9 years old, and would get up every morning. I bought like 10, 12 laying hens and would collect organic before there was such a thing as organic chicken eggs and sell them to, family and friends over multiple years, and even did sort of a business project. I think it was like 3rd grade, 4th grade on the chicken sort of business, if you will. So that's where sort of the entrepreneurialism started. But into high school, I was a huge nerd about stocks and Wall Street and all that kind of stuff. And so I'd be the nerd who'd raise my hand in, pre-cal and walk past the bathroom to go to the payphone to call my broker to put on some sort of trade I was thinking about. Like that was my thing. And so leaving Shiner, my one goal was to get to Wall Street. And so went to A&M, finance, accounting major, dual major here at A&M, class of 2005, and then made it to Wall Street, was there for a little bit. I always say I would do it all over again once, never a second time. Unbelievable learning experience. Could not raise a family there per se. But then Dallas for a couple of years working for a major hedge fund before I moved back to Shiner. And it wasn't actually to start the family business. It was to start a hedge fund and do some investing sort of things. And that's how I got into gold and silver specifically. After 08, 09, I was thinking about what is money and how does gold work in a monetary system and all this sort of thing. And from there started the entrepreneurial endeavor of Texas Precious Metals, which actually became number 1 Aggie 100 in 2014, I believe, and is part of the Aggie 100 celebration today as well. So that was outside of Kaspar Companies, and through a lot of different transactions and different things, we were growing. It ended up being part of Kaspar Companies in 2017. I took over as CEO of the sort of the family business. And Kaspar Companies specifically goes back to 1898. So 5th generation at this point. My great-great-grandfather was a farmer outside of Shiner, and he was also a tinker, sort of inventor. And when barbed wire came to Texas, the smooth wire became scrap, and smooth wire is what all the local ranchers and farmers used, and became piled up behind the barns. And he started taking this wire and making cornhusk baskets and horse muzzles, and neighbors like, "Oh, I'll give you $1 for it." And he's like, "Okay," and I'll just make another one. And so pretty soon he was just on his wagon going around and started selling the wire products. The first shopping cart ever invented in the United States came from Shiner, Texas, sold to a grocery store in Houston. But from there, Kaspar Companies just sort of became a mini Berkshire Hathaway, or holding company, if you will. And today we have 5 platforms: Bedrock Truck Beds, which is replacement truck beds on the back of pickup trucks. We have Circle Y Saddles, which is the largest saddle manufacturer in the United States. We have Texas Precious Metals, which I mentioned, gold and silver distribution. And then we have sort of an outdoors company, vertically integrated, from Iota, which makes carbon fiber stocks, and Stiller, which makes actions, and Horizon Firearms, which does the rifle that puts it all together, and Texas Ammunition, which is an online e-tailer of ammo. And so you're just like, well, what does all of that have in common? And
it's awesome.
Besides being awesome,
that and the apocalypse happens. You've got your gold, you've got your guns, you've got your guns. You're good. Yeah.
The customer is what the massive connector. So those who buy a gun oftentimes are, look at gold and silver, and they oftentimes have a pickup truck, and they may have a horse, right? And so the Venn diagram, sort of the overlap, we understand what the customer values, and we feel like we can thrive there and drive growth, and hence the Aggie 100.
So is someone, I assume on each one of these companies, you put someone in charge of each one of these companies.
So we have a president over each subsidiary, and they drive their ship. But one of the values that I brought to Kaspar Companies that we put into place after I became CEO of 2019, 2020 is a business system that connects everything together. So it's called KBS, Kaspar Business System. The acronym is skills, safety, Kaizen, investing, leadership, lean daily management, and strategic deployment. And so again, what does Texas Precious Metals, which is a distributor of gold and silver, storage security company, have to do with a truck bed company? Well, operationally, hardly anything. But once you overlay a business system, the way we do strategy and the cadence by which we do strategy review, and then the tools that we use for strategy deployment are the same. This, as it relates to operational management, the visualization, when you walk through the factory of somebody making saddles, or whether you walk through the storage facility for Texas Precious Metals, the visualizations are the same. And so the way we do business, the system by which we do business, is connected across the platform. And so then when we acquire a company, the first thing that we try to do is integrate KBS, or Kaspar Business Systems, into it so that the management is all the one. And it gives the presidents that you reference unbelievable freedom, because it's like, here's how we do business, but now you don't have to figure that out. And now you be creative and figure out how to attack the market, both tactically and strategically, and, determine, how we need to go attack this geographical region. So take capital acquisition request, a car, right? Every company has some way by which they decide to buy this $200,000 machine or don't buy this $200,000 machine. Most companies don't have that systematized, right? And so usually it's, the boss or the owner, how it feels, or who can make the best argument or whatnot. Well, within a business system, whether you work for our Bedrock a truck bed company, or you work for Circle Y, the president knows it's like, okay, this is how I need my team to think about allocating $200,000 for XY machine and building out that business system sort of across the platform.
So then how is your role as the CEO that's over all that? How do you interact with those business heads? I mean, you've put a system in place that you can talk the same language across multiple disciplines, multiple companies, but at some point a decision's got to be made.
Right.
And so is that where it comes to you, or do you put as much of that decision-making down to them?
We put it as much of the decision-making down to them. My primary role is probably one of 2 areas, and that's wherever there's a fire, that's where I'm going to help work with the leadership to figure out, whatever area that we need to figure out how to solve that problem, some extra brain power, et cetera. And then the other thing is just growth and acquisitions. So I mentioned those 5 platforms of different business. The first type of acquisition I would like to do is a bolt-on to that platform. But we also look at other platforms. So we weren't in the saddle making business 2 years ago. That was a company that we acquired, right? And so my overall role, where I get an A+, I would say, if I was to grade myself, is good capital allocation of the income and the cash that these businesses are spitting off, and do you reinvest that in the same business to grow further, or do you look outward for the acquisition
for the benefit of
for the Kaspar Companies as a whole? And again, bolt-on acquisitions for Circle Y. Didn't go through, I won't name a name, but we were looking at another saddle manufacturer to add on to that, which would help that particular subsidiary continue its growth endeavors, sort of thing.
So can you go through the skills again?
Yeah. So safety was the first S. Kaizen, which is a Japanese word, which just means continuous improvement, and one of my sort of life models. The I stands for investing. The first L stands for lean daily management. The second L stands for leadership, and the last S stands for strategic deployment. And each of these is modules. So each module has the guidelines of the system underneath it. One of our values is versatility. So as I'm describing this, don't think rigid corporate, because you're not a company over 126 years without pivoting many times and being very versatile in the way you attack things. But it helps provide the sandbox and the lines, again, on how you approach problems. With Kaizen, our continuous improvement, we have 5-day Kaizen events as far as here's a problem and here's the charter that you create 3 weeks beforehand, and here's the facilitator, what the facilitator needs to do, and gets the team together to solve it. Or Kaizen blitzes, which is just a 3-day event. And so each one of these is a module, and now I think it's like 80 pages of, and so when we hire somebody from the outside, the first thing we do is take them out of their job for 2 weeks and teach the business system overall. And so again, all businesses do everything that we do. It's just oftentimes that it's not defined and it's ad hoc and it's different from week to week or month to month, and it really limits the growth opportunities of where you're wanting to go, because you're constantly having to backfill or reinvent something that somebody invented 3 months ago, but forgot it
and didn't document it.
Didn't
say, hey, that's a good, or that sucked. Let's not do that again.
And so the company that's done, and they're known for Kaizen, but really they created a business system. The company that invented this is Toyota. Toyota Production Systems. It has the production in the name, which people think of manufacturing, but it's just way beyond manufacturing. It touches the accounting, it touches HR, it touches how you just approach business. And then the company who's done it, that we've tried to emulate in the United States, is Danaher, which has performed better than Berkshire Hathaway over the last 25 years in the stock market. It's over $100 billion company and nobody knows about it. And they have this unbelievable business system, Danaher DBS, that they put together. And that's who I've tried to emulate.
So how did you get exposed to that? Is that you just being, on your way to the payphone to place a bid?
No. So that's an interesting story too. So in 2017 is when I sort of took over. My grandfather had just passed away, and my grandfather built so much of what you see today. And he was an incredible businessman, but he made one mistake. And that mistake was he never picked a direct successor. And so he actually passed away in Kyle Field, which is an incredible story. He died of a heart attack during a football game. Talk about a way to go. But he was 87 years old and was in the office the day before. And so he never picked a successor. And just because of age, 87, starting things to slow down. And so I call that 10 years sort of leading up to that, sort of the lost decade in our Kaspar Companies history. And you just think of what happened between 2005 to 2007 to 2017 with social media and marketing and how you approach the market. And he put the company together so well that it was still producing cash and still making money, but it was losing on a micro level just a little bit every day on the competitive landscape, right? And so it wasn't too far long after I took over that I was like, whoa, there's some major foundational issues, and our most profitable company went from most profitable to losing money and had no idea why. And I moved my office to the factory. And I'm a finance guy. I didn't know anything about manufacturing. And so when I don't know something about something, I do what I've done for most of my life. I just dive into books. And so I started reading about Six Sigma, and I was like, I don't really like this. This doesn't really make sense. And I stumbled a book called The Lean Turnaround by Art Byrne. and he took a company called Wire Mold, a wire company that was basically on the verge of bankruptcy, and using Toyota and Danaher systems completely turned it around. And it was just one of those eureka moments for me. I was like, this is it. And you're like a toddler, right? I mean, you start walking in that direction and you fall over and you get up and you take a few more steps and fall over.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew I was on the right formula for what Kaspar Companies represented and for what we needed to do on the manufacturing side, and then realized it wasn't just manufacturing. This applied again to accounting and to HR and to purchasing and to Texas Precious Metals and distribution and, all the various aspects. And that was an all-in moment. And that's sort of how I stumbled into and just reading and learning, how to do business in that way.
That is so cool. So which of the companies, that you listed of the 5 were there before you kind of took over?
So that's a really interesting question, especially for an entrepreneurial growth type of podcast. So the crazy thing is there's not $1 for a 126-year-old company. There's not $1 of revenue that is older than 10 years. And so what I mean by that is everything has either been started or we've acquired in the last 11 years of every dollar of revenue that represented. Wow. And that wasn't on purpose. We didn't set out to do that by any stretch of the imagination. I think it was just reevaluating the business world that we're in today and the products that people, realize. And so, I guess technically the oldest company, Texas Precious Metals, would have been like 12 years ago, if I'm being perfectly, so it started in 2011, 2012. But all the other revenue dollars so we were real big in made Kaspar Companies in the 80s and 90s. We called them show racks, newspaper vending machines. You put in $1 and you get out a Wall Street Journal, New York Times for newspaper. Well, 90% of those newspaper vending machines ever made in North America came from Shiner, Texas.
Wow.
Well, that product went the way of the dodo bird, right?
Yeah.
With internet and all that kind of stuff. And so I shut that down in 2015. It's a legacy company and legacy product, but had been, slowly dying a painful death over a multi-decade, period. And so it's just making good business decisions again and understanding Bedrock. We started that in 2017, 18, somewhere in there from scratch. And now, that particular subsidiary is going to do north of $25 million this year in revenue, which is, incredible, right? All of those are relatively new consumer facing, products and companies, if you will.
So you've done a really good job of assessing the industries that you're in, the businesses that you're in, and then making strategic decisions of how do we grow this or how do we exit it? And I understand that based on what you said before, okay, a bolt-on acquisition is the best,
right?
Because then we can just augment what we've got, use the Kaspar business system to make it efficient, speak our language, and then just pour gas on it.
Right.
How is that? But what about non-bolt-on?
Yeah.
Bolt-on. So
again, the first thing I ask ourselves, so for instance, the saddle company is a great example of your question. Do we understand the customer, and do we feel like we can provide value to the customer in ways or insights ways that other companies don't, right? And so it's, if you hang out with me enough, I quote Warren Buffett all the time, right? But he talks about circle of competence. And so for instance, I'm not an oil guy. I know nothing about oil exploration or oil services. I would be shocked if we ever get or bought or started anything within sort of the oil space specifically, because we don't understand the customer and we don't have a competitive advantage there, right? But the Western market, we're, again, a one-stop light town, right? Many of our employees own horses. We already sell to that customer with a bunch of our other products, whether it be truck beds or gold and silver, guns, et cetera, right? And so we start there. And then the second question is, through Kaspar Business Systems, can we drive value and an efficiency that other owners or acquirers would not be able to? And in the case of Circle Y, it's kind of getting into the weeds here, but great story. We bought it, and within 4 months, we had completely redesigned and redone the factory. The employees fully bought on to what we were trying to do. And we opened up 35% of the manufacturing space that was no longer needed because of just our approach to efficiency. We took out, the acquisition had $8 million in inventory, And we were able to take out nearly $2 million of WIP, or work in process inventory. Again, just being more efficient to where
you don't need to have that.
You don't need that,
hand.
right? And so a saddle would start when we bought it day one, and would range between, I think it was 20 to 55 days by the time it would come out of the end. Well, by the time we got completely done with it, it starts day one, and now it comes out between 5 and 10 days on the back end. That's massive.
It's a huge amount of cash.
Huge amount of cash. And it can help fund the acquisition, but then also be able to respond that much faster again to the customer. It's a customer about how can we provide value. And if we can provide value, the customers want to take care of us. It's a full 360 loop there.
And I love that centricity, is that even a word? Right? of value to the customer, right? I absolutely love that.
And so everything, if you can drive that down to the employee as well, because oftentimes, right, employee sees this much of what the end goal of that particular subsidiary or company or product that they're doing, right? They're riveting something onto the saddle, and that's all they see day in and day out. And if you can show them how what their exact action touches all the way to the customer who's going to be using it for a horse, or a grandson and his granddad, going on a trail ride, or roping or whatnot, right? It adds. You're no longer just riveting. You are touching the customer in a special way if you can drive that to the employee, right? And it creates ownership. And that's always one of the most difficult things of any business, is how do you drive ownership all the way down, to every level of the company, from the line worker all the way up to the C-suite, right?
We, not season 9, but season 8, we kicked it off with Mike McAllowitz. I don't know if you know, read any of his books, but he's another business author Chris and I are both huge fans of. And the book he talked about that time was All In.
Okay. I have heard of that book. Yes.
It really is about how do you get psychological ownership. I don't know, you may or maybe not give actual shares and equity ownerships to someone, but you're not going to necessarily do that for everybody.
Yeah.
So that's how do you get psychological ownership?
Right. And so that's one of the first things I did when I took over is we developed a profit sharing program where now 10% of all profits go back to the employees. And we're averaging now 10% of someone's income is now in their profit sharing from the line worker all the way up. And so, now you're talking, even for line workers, you're talking thousands of dollars over the course of a year that they can do a vacation that they could never have done before. Right. And so again, if you can connect the customer to the profit and to the profit sharing and how it impacts their life and how what you do impacts the customer's life, you can get buy-in that way.
But then also the Kaizen is that
yes,
where you can say, okay, if there's one way that maybe I don't do the rivet here, maybe that's 2 steps down, and that'll save me 30 seconds.
Yes, and that's one of our corporate policies is, as a result of Kaizen, no one will ever lose their job, and we've never cut any job because of Kaizen. But we've done so many processes where it would take, 12 labor hours to do XYZ, and now it takes 5 labor hours. And so it frees up 7 labor hours to redirect to a more value-added process or a different process for more production, and then they see that in the profit sharing checks. And we explain that, coming full 360. So yes, absolutely.
Well, how about that, Ags? Was that pretty awesome or what? I know I took a ton of notes from Jason. That was like you said, that was a master class, right? From that Jason gave there on all sorts of things. And I have a ton of notes. We're going to hold off on those notes until our next episode, right? To give our key takeaways. But man, that was pretty awesome.
100%. I'm honestly, my biggest takeaway is that I need to go to Shiner, go get a beer, and then go check out his gold vault. Right. That'll be pretty cool. So maybe a little show and tell next time, Jason. That'd be good.
Yeah.
But anyway, Ags, we hope that you enjoyed this first half of our discussion with Jason, and you'll join us next week when we finish it out. And we hope that you connect with us, connect with Chris, connect with me, connect with Aggie Growth Hacks on any social media platform that you're on. We'd love to get to know you. We'd love to share your story on a future episode of Aggie Growth Hacks. And if you're listening to this on a podcast app, hit subscribe, give a big gig 'em thumbs up, write a review so that this podcast can get out to more Aggie entrepreneurs and we can help their businesses grow.
We also want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship at Texas A&M University. Since 1999, the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship has served as the hub of entrepreneurship for Texas A&M. If you're an Aggie entrepreneur or even a entrepreneur, head on over to their website right now to find a program that's right for you. Just go to aggiegrowthhacks.com/McFerrin. Well, Ags, join us next time when we connect with Jason again and talk about how he hacked his growth. Until then, I'm Chris Hunter.
And I'm Greg Martin. Thanks and gig 'em.